Good evening and welcome to Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu.
And I am Alfred Ocansey.
The news is also live on Casmi 107.1 FM and across the world at 3news.com. On Facebook, we're streaming live on 3FM 927. Coming up in the next 1.5 hours, 560 megawatt Sunon Asogli power plant suspends operations amidst failure of Electricity Company of Ghana to meet its overdue payment obligations.
Also this evening, embattled flag bearer of the People's National Convention PNC, Bernard Mona, says he is happy with the proceedings at the Accra High Court earlier today. We have details of exactly what happened here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Also keeping an eye on the reactions to the raging debate of the fate of some 4 members of Parliament, whom the Honourable Haruna Idrisu, the Tamale South Member of Parliament, a former minority leader, is asking the Speaker to declare those seats vacant. The Speaker, Alban Bagbin, has deferred a ruling until the next 48 hours. We'll tell you exactly what Professor Michael Quay, a former Speaker of Parliament, has been saying with regards to this matter. Plus, the latest on the fight against illegal mining, as some coalition of district assemblies have been also talking about this latest development. Stay with us. We have the latest in business and sports over the next 1 hour, 30 minutes. We're live as well on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. We're streaming on Facebook at 3FM 927.
Safwa Buahine is standing by with a summary of the news. Safwa, what you have?
Thank you, Beatrice, and welcome to the news summary segment. We go straight into the details. And an Accra High Court has granted Oliver Bakavomewo bail to the tune of 20,000 cedis with 2 sureties. The leader of the activist group Democracy Hub was ordered to report to police twice a week. In court on Wednesday, October 16, the judge handling the matter indicated that there was no assurance that Oliver would not commit further offences after already doing so, though on bail on different charges. Also, lawyer for PNC flag bearer Bernard Mona is hopeful the Electoral Commission will heed the advice of the court not to take decisions which will overreach the court's decision. The High Court has set Monday, October 21, to determine the fate of the presidential aspirant regarding his status on the ballot sheet. And also, former Speaker of Parliament Professor Michael Quay has disagreed with Haruna Idrisu's petition seeking the current Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin to declare some 4 seats vacant. The Tamale South MP contends that the occupants of these 4 seats have opted to run as independent candidates in the upcoming general elections after being elected on the ticket of their parties. Hence, he wants their seats to be declared vacant. Also, a 16-year-old general arts female student, name withheld, at Impriaso Senior High School in the Eastern Region is alleged to have been raped by 8 boys. 5 out of the 8 boys, who are also students at the school, have been arrested and are in custody at Nkwetia Divisional Police Command, whilst the other 3 are at large. And to our last story, members of Organised Labour is scheduled to have a meeting with the Attorney General to discuss issues pertaining to illegal mining, also known as galamsey. The meeting follows Labour's resolve to work with government in collaboration with the Attorney General on a number of steps to be taken to fight the illegal mining menace following their decision to not proceed with the intended nationwide strike on October 10th. And this brings us to the end of the news summary segment and over.
Thank you very much, Safwa Buahine. Now to our first story, where Sunon Asogli Power Ghana Limited has announced the suspension of operations at its 560 megawatt power plant. The shutdown apparently took effect from Tuesday, October 8, 2024 at 5 p.m. In a statement, the company cited the inability to fund operations due to the Electricity Company of Ghana's failure to meet its overdue payment obligations as the primary reason for this difficult situation. Sunon Asogli expressed regret over the shutdown, emphasizing that it has always been considerate in its dealings with the ECG and the Ghanaian government. Unlike other independent power producers, the company has refrained from invoicing ECG for accrued idle capacity charges, demonstrating a commitment to collaboration. Despite this, ECG's outstanding debt to Sunon Asogli have reached a staggering $259 million, excluding fuel costs as of the end of September 2024. Now, the company also reported a significant increase in its debt, with a 23% rise in the net balance between January and September 2024. Additionally, only 22.6% of the invoices for this period have been settled by the ECG through the cash waterfall mechanism. The suspension of the power plant is expected to have widespread implications for electricity supply in the country, raising concerns about potential power outages. How dire is this? We're joined by lawyer Richmond Roxon. He's an energy analyst. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening to you, Beatrice, and thank you for having me.
We're just learning of implications the shutdown could have on us. But from where you say, what immediate effects do you foresee from the suspension of, the Sunona Sogli power plant on Ghana's electricity supply?
This issue it's very unfortunate that we keep coming back to the same matter. But a couple of weeks ago, if you remember, PRC put up a statement on the challenges that the electricity company of Ghana is facing. 6 months ago, we also had a government saying it had restructured debt of about $1 billion with some IPPs. Unfortunately, we are back at this again because the ECG has serious challenges, technical and commercial, and is unable to meet its obligations to these IPPs. The cash waterfall mechanism has also been a challenge because there's been issues when it comes to it. One of them being unfair distribution of the monies that the electricity company of Ghana has been raising. This decision by Sunona Sogli, if not dealt with immediately, will have an impact on our electricity supply. Also, it will have an impact on our production, which eventually will also lead to some deficits in the supply.
So we should expect some sort of doomsaw, because I'm just looking at how significant really 560 megawatt capacity of this plant is in terms of our overall power supply.
At this point in time, it depends on the energy mix. When you look at the energy mix, thermal is the most. Sogli has been one of the reliable power supply IPPs that we've been using within the period. If government has procured fuel for other alternatives, perhaps the impact of this may be minimal, but definitely if government has not done that, and then we should be expecting some deficit in the supply of power, which may affect certain areas.
I mean, you seem fatigued even coming to talk about this matter again, giving us the list of how many times we've had to talk about this. Do you think that, we are here because perhaps the government didn't tell us the entire truth when it talked about restructuring debt?
We raised this issue several occasions that the details when it comes to the restructured agreement with each IPP must be disclosed by government, because we keep getting the blanket statement that the government has restructured. Meanwhile, we still have these IPPs coming out to complain. In fact, some time back, the chamber released a statement even denying that the government had even done that. So it's a very difficult situation to deal with, considering the back and forth, and considering the fact that we don't have the fine details. In any case, if the restructuring has been done, we keep saying that these debts are recurring. These IPPs keep producing power each month. And definitely, once they keep producing, no matter how you restructure it, definitely you are still going to have debt every month, which needs to be dealt with. If you look at the statement from Asogli, from January to now, even excluding fuel, you can look at the amount of money that the government of Ghana owes to ECG. So we must take critical steps as a country to look at the energy sector debts. It's ballooning. It's become a headache for the sector, and if we're not careful, eventually the sector may end up collapsing.
You talk about full disclosure, as it were. How much does it take for the government to tell us where we are and really where we are going to dealing with this problem?
It's just information available to government. They know. By our estimation, we put the figure around $2 billion. The energy sector debt, especially when it comes to power. So the government knows, but it's always been difficult, the government disclosing the full fact. Out of what the government itself said, they said they had restructured over $1 billion with some of the IPPs, but still you have significant debt. Asogli alone is talking about over almost $250 million. You can imagine the other IPPs when they come in. So the government should...
It's actually $259 million.
Exactly, 259. That's just one. And there are many more of these IPPs that are going through practically the same issue, which is affecting their work. And this does not even include fuel. So you can imagine if that is added, where we're going to be.
Per the statement issued by Sogli, this shutdown, as it were, actually took effect last week, because we are talking today is the 15th of October. What do you expect the government to do immediately?
The government must deal with this immediately. Like you mentioned earlier, it's becoming one too many, where every now and then, within 3 months to 6 months, we find an IPP or even the chamber itself coming around to complain that they are owed by government. The last statement the IPP, the chamber released, they mentioned that the government had promised them that with the IMF funds coming through, they were going to make some payments, but no payment had been made within the period. So the government must sit down with them, and then the cash water reform mechanism must work. And I'll also make reference to the PURC statement on ECG, that some of the measures introduced or even suggested or proposed must be dealt with or must be implemented within the shortest possible time. If we keep making commercial and technical losses to the extent that we are seeing, definitely ECG will not be able to raise the requisite money, and then they will not be able to pay the IPP.
My last question to you: you expect the government to deal with this immediately, but is there anything from where you sit you believe CSOs in the energy sector could do to put some kind of pressure on the government beyond this immediate step to ensure that we have a plan towards dealing with this matter?
I believe the CSOs have made several proposals, from ASEP to IES to Imani to the chamber itself. Several proposals have been made. And like I mentioned earlier, for the first time in the history of this country, we had the PURC, which is the regulator, also making proposals when it comes to dealing with ECG and the energy sector in general. So then enough proposals have been made. It's just the political will and the money to make the requisite payment. But what the government knows what to do. If this is just about money. It's just about funding, which has been unavailable. The government must take steps to make payment to these IPPs. Like I said, there's enough proposal on the table that the government must implement or look out for. In recent times, we've been told that the distribution part of the ECG, the government is considering privatizing that. That is also an interesting angle that the government can look at, because we need to really improve on revenue collection, which deals largely with commercials and then the technical losses as well.
Thank you very much, Richmond Roxon. He is a lawyer and an energy analyst.
Well, you're still live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond, some 15 minutes after 5. Now, let's stay a bit on this matter. And fortunately, we have a former power minister and also member of parliament for the Pro East constituency, Dr. Kwabena Donkor, joining us. Dr. Kwabena Donkor, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Hot Edition.
Good evening.
First off, I mean, with this one, for many who have been monitoring this space, saw this coming. The Sunana Sogli announcement of the shutdown of its operations due to the inability of Electricity Company of Ghana to pay what we understand is a 259 million cedis debt. Now, from where we are now, what's the risk that we're faced with because of this development?
Well, we have two risks we face. Apart from the capacity of Sunana Sogli, slightly over 500 megawatts combined going off, there's a possibility of contagion. If other IPPs decide to follow suit, the contagion effect will also be there. But fundamentally, this is a financial problem. In 2023, ECG made a net loss of slightly over 10 billion cedis. In 2022, the loss was also around 10 billion cedis. And so in terms of ECG's financial muscle, ECG is unable to meet its due obligations, and that is a challenge. But it is also important that we don't heap all the blame on ECG, particularly in terms of its losses, because the losses underpin its inability to meet its contractual obligations. If out of the about 10.2 billion CD loss in 2023, exchange losses alone exceeded 8 billion cedis. So there is a broader problem of the macroeconomy, the fiscal regime. When an entity, about 80% of an entity's operating loss is attributable to exchange losses, then we have a challenge.
By exchange losses, you mean the depreciation of the cedi against the dollar?
Precisely. The net effect on ECG for 2023 was slightly above 8 billion cedis. So the managers of the macroeconomy have a hand in this, especially managers of monetary policy. They have a hand in this challenge. Of course, there is the inefficiency, there are the structural problems of ECG, and that the board of ECG has to take responsibility for. Because if your operational and commercial losses are nearly 30% or around 30%, there is a challenge. Your markup in any business will not exceed 30%. So basically, we are under recovering costs. And financial sustainability is the biggest challenge of ECG today.
It's a very interesting angle you bring to this conversation, because what essentially this means is that ECG is paying 8 billion cedis debt that it actually did not incur, but because the cedi has been depreciating against the dollar, the debts that they owe these IPPs in dollar terms is increasing the debt in itself as a whole.
Yes. You see, ECG is the contracting party on behalf of the Ghanaian state in terms of contracts with IPPs. And indeed, with BUI and BRE as well, is the contracting party, especially with the IPPs and BUI Power. And these contracts, as is the norm, are dollar denominated. So their payables are dollar denominated and their receivables are 95% or more cedi denominated. So when we mismanage the macroeconomy to the extent that it impacts on the exchange rate, remember today the cedi has crossed the 16 cedis to the dollar mark. So with that challenge, it impacts heavily on the energy sector. And since ECG is at the bottom of the energy sector in terms of liability and risk, we have this challenge. And it's just not ECG. We met the committee I chair, we met Gridco a few days ago. And for impairment, normal impairment, Gridco had to impair over 2 billion cedis out of the slightly over 4 billion receivables due Gridco, because it's gone beyond the 90-day period to a year and even years. And these debts are largely owed by ECG. So there is this fundamental challenge that if we are not careful, ECG's inability to be commercially sustainable will drag the whole energy sector down.
But I recall, it's about some 4 months or so ago, the finance minister, Dr. Amin Adamu, was quite clear that government had actually advanced in their plans to sign an agreement with the IPPs to help restructure its arrears and the debt owed the IPPs. The IPPs have been consistent that there hasn't been any specific or firm agreement to that effect. And I want us to take a listen to him exactly what he said, and I'll seek your thoughts about why we are at this point with this said agreement.
Because the arrears, as we know it today, is still huge. on our books. But coming to the existing arrears, we are almost through with our negotiations with the IPPs to restructure the arrears over several years. And as I speak to you, I believe in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be signing those agreements with the IPPs we have concluded negotiations with. We have even started showing good faith to the IPPs by making some payments that we had agreed to do with them.
So if it was indeed the case, Dr. Kwabena, that there's an agreement and some payments have been made, how come it did not significantly impact on the debt owed these IPPs that we're at this point where Southern Asogli has had no choice than to take this decision of shutting down their plant?
You see, propaganda can carry you only so far. The actuality will meet you at the corner. At the time the minister said this, we said, look, intentions alone are not enough. They had not signed off to anything yet. And so if you are negotiating, they've been negotiating, go through our budget statement for the last 3 years. They've been negotiating. But if the negotiation has not resulted in an agreed position underpinned by financial commitment, it's still an intention. And that is the challenge. And worse is the fact that ECG is expected to collect over 2 billion cedis every month. ECG does not collect 50% of that. It hardly ever collects 50% of what is due. So there is that huge under-recovery. And they're exacerbated by a debilitating exchange rate regression. So that is the challenge. We must confront the situation. First of all, there are managerial and commercial weaknesses that ECG has. Those have to be addressed. But there are also the results of macroeconomic policy on ECG. Fortunately, unfortunately, ECG, the Ghanaian state is the sole shareholder. And if ECG lacks liquidity, if ECG lacks working capital, the state has a responsibility to inject working capital. So when you pay off some debts on behalf of ECG, indirectly you are increasing your equity. You are injecting equity. But the problem is not only with ECG, even with the state. The Ministry of Finance has committed to pay between 200 to 250 million cedis a month to support fuel purchases. The ministry has not been up to date on that as well.
I see.
And
now,
so we really have a challenge
on our hands
that we must address frontally.
And a quick one before I let you go.
Yes.
Is this 500 megawatt shortage going to cause doomsday in the coming days?
Well, I don't know what you call doomsday, but yes, it will have impact on the availability of power. Because Tony Asogli is the single largest IPP. It's the single largest IPP. We can ramp up Akusumbo, we can ramp up Pong, but it will be challenging.
Dr. Kwabena Donkor, I do appreciate your time on this matter. Thank you so much.
The pleasure is mine.
Dr. Kwabena Donkor is former Power Minister, is a member of Parliament for the Pro East constituency.
Let's bring you some more here on Hot Edition. And embattled presidential candidate of the People's National Convention, Bernard Mona, says he's happy with the proceedings at the Accra High Court earlier today. Mr. Mona was in court to challenge the decision of the Electoral Commission to disqualify him from the 2024 presidential elections. In his comments in court, the presiding judge said, quote, actually advised the Electoral Commission, EC, not to do anything far-reaching, unquote, as the court looks at the case. Bernard Mona is seeking, among other reliefs, an order restraining the Electoral Commission from embarking on any activity relating to the presidential election until he is declared as, quote, duly nominated candidate and allowed to contest the elections, unquote. Bernard Mona spoke to me earlier on the Midday News.
The judge wanted some clarifications on some issues because, as you are aware, the Electoral Commission said that we had incomplete particulars of our supporters and we corrected them. The Electoral Commission, now in disqualifying us, said that there were several errors and omissions without particularizing what type of error. Then when they went to court, the affidavit was talking about look-alike signatures and the basis of which they have to disqualify us. So the judge asked the question, and my lawyer clarified that the Electoral Commission has no locus whatsoever to determine whether a signature is a look-alike or it's not a look-alike. Appropriate institutions are there, and the Electoral Commission cannot act whimsically and use that and say they are disqualifying us. The second important thing that the judge wanted to know, which my lawyer clarified, was that were we given a chance to look at the errors? And it was evident that we were not given any chance whatsoever to look at the so-called several errors and the omissions, because what we were subjected to was the incomplete particulars of our supporters, as is captured in the 7 pages that they gave us, which we corrected. So therefore, the issue of natural justice has been breached. The second that our lawyer raised was that any time natural justice or the patrum has been breached, then it means that the issue cannot even be discussed further. At that point, the court then said that, okay, they will set Monday. I say Monday is the 21st.
Yes, October 21. Yes.
Yeah, so they will set Monday for its ruling. But importantly, when I drew my lawyer's attention that the EC was going ahead with its processes contrary to our relief regime, our counsel drew the attention of the court, and court advised the Electoral Commission, in fact, told the Electoral Commission's lawyer to tell their client to desist from carrying on with any further processes until the case is fully determined.
But the court
and we are restored. Restored. So I am happy that the court has taken this position and has asked counsel of the Electoral Commission to advise them to desist from continuing with any further processes until the determination of the case.
I think the quote we have from the judge rather is a caution to the EC not to take any far-reaching decisions. You cannot interpret that to be not going ahead with anything at all.
He told them that they know the implication. They should advise the EC accordingly. To advise the EC accordingly, if you look at our relief G, it says that the EC should cease from proceeding with printing of ballots and any other processes until I am restored. So if the judge says this, what did you understand? The EC had no case. And that is why at a point they even requested for 2 hours so that they can bring in the completed and corrected version of my form for the judge to see.
And you heard that Bernard Mona, he's a presidential candidate for the People's National Convention, who's been to court to challenge the decision of the Electoral Commission to disqualify him from contesting in this year's general election. We're joined by his lawyer, Harold Atuguba. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We heard the explanation of Bernard Mona and his own interpretation of what the judge said during proceedings in court today. But having heard what he said, what do you expect on October 21? Bernard Mona seems to give us the impression that perhaps it might go in your favor.
Yes, we are convinced absolutely in the case we put before the court that before the Electoral Commission proceeded to disqualifying the first applicant, as in Mr. Bernard Mona, from contesting the public presidential election slated for the 7th of December. What the EC did was to effectively deny him the opportunity to be heard. And that goes into violating the rules of natural justice. The courts have repeatedly held that once a party is not afforded an opportunity to be heard before he is condemned, then all other things that follow through are a complete nullity. Now, if you look at the facts of this case, it's not too difficult to portend what is going to happen. by a letter dated the 13th of September 2024, the Electoral Commission itself had written to the PNC and Mr. Bernard Mona, informing him that they had discovered a number of errors in his submitted nomination form. Indeed, they had intimated that it was from pages 9, 10, 11, 15, 17, and down to 50. And so called the attention of Mr. Bernard Mona and the PNC to correct the errors. Those errors were corrected and the forms were resubmitted to the Electoral Commission. The Electoral Commission itself acknowledged receipt of the corrected version of the forms and intimated to the PNC and Mr. Bernard Mona that all the corrections had been duly effected. On the 20th of September, we were now made aware through other presidential candidates that there was a balloting for positions without Mr. Bernard Mona and the PNC. So he came to us, obviously, as his lawyers. We wrote formally to the Electoral Commission seeking to know why the balloting for positions was being proceeded without recourse to him. Because, mind you, he is duly elected as the presidential candidate of the PNC that has contested all the public elections in this country since 1992 to date. It was only after our letter as lawyers to the Electoral Commission was submitted that the Electoral Commission now wrote back to Mr. Bernard Mona. This time, they never referred to any of the alleged errors that they had brought to his attention by the letter dated the 13th of September 2024. This time, what the Electoral Commission chair said, quote, was that he was being disqualified on the basis of certain errors and omissions. As we speak to this point, he has no idea what the particulars of those errors are. And you are well aware that if you look at Regulation 9.2 of CI 127, which is a constitutional instrument that was laid before Parliament for 21 days by the Electoral Commission itself, before it became law, it is clear that before a presidential candidate's nominations can be declared invalid, he must have been given an opportunity to address those errors. This was never done, and clearly it was a violation of his fundamental right to a fair hearing. You would know that before a man is condemned, he must be told clearly what he is being condemned for and given an opportunity to redress that. And but let me conclude on this. When we got to court, we had occasion to address the number of, very, very, if you want to describe, ex post facto rationalization by the Electoral Commission for what they had done. One of the things they said was they had detected forged signatories and that there were instances of impersonation on page 10 of the forms. Now, mind you, if you look at Article 63 2B, all presidential candidates are supposed to have endorsements by not less than 2 people in each of the 216 districts. Now, if you detected that there were similarities in signatures, in the first place, the Electoral Commission has no locus to detect criminality. Once there's an allegation of criminality, the proper thing for the Electoral Commission to have done was to have referred the matter to the police service to investigate the veracity or otherwise. And even before that, they ought to have given an opportunity to the PNC and Mr. Bernard Mona to react to those allegations. They never did that. The Electoral Commission is not a forensic expert in determining the similarities in signatures. And so what they have done is to have arrogated to themselves the role of being a complainant, being a jury, being a court to itself, being the prosecution. What chance did you think the PNC and Mr. Bernard Mona would have stood It's a clear violation of Articles 23 and 296.
And indeed,
that enjoins. Yes, go ahead.
The point I hear you make, which was also the same point Bernard Mona made, was the breach of natural justice, which you've tried to explain even through the proceedings. And you seem very convinced that indeed on the 21st of this month, we should have the judge declaring his judgment in your favor. What if it doesn't go your way? What will you do?
Well, if it doesn't go our way, there are so many options we have. But we are convinced about the case we have put before the court. And as I said earlier, this is not just about Bernard Mona and the PNC. This is about the entire democratic dispensation of this country being put to the test. And I'm convinced that the judge, after having heard the arguments we put across, would rule in Bernard Mona and the PNC's favor. Because it is in the interest of our democratic experiment to have people, as in the citizenry, vote for their candidates as they desire. You cannot rule out presidential candidates based on mere technicalities that have nothing to do with the will of the people.
I wanted to hear. Thank you so much, Harold Atuguba, for speaking to us.
Thank you.
And Harold Atuguba is lawyer for Bernard Mona, the PNC's presidential candidate who is challenging his disqualification from the presidential race by the Electoral Commission in court.
Well, you're also live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're also live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. Also on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. There's some breaking news coming through right now here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, which we'll be monitoring quite closely.
Breaking news on 3FM 92.7.
Well, some news coming through in the Amenfi Central constituency of the NDC. You recall that the NDC's sitting member of parliament, Peter Yaw-Kwachiaka, is one of 4 MPs, sitting MPs, that the Honorable Haruna Idrisu is petitioning the speaker to have that seat declared, because this member of parliament has decided to contest the Amenfi Central constituency as an independent candidate going into the 2024 December 7 parliamentary elections in that constituency. The reason being, he fell out with the party after that primaries just about a month, over a month ago, when the contender who won that constituency's primaries of ticket of the NDC was taken to court by some 5 persons challenging her eligibility. What's happened now is that the Electoral Commission has been petitioned to disqualify the parliamentary candidate for the Amenfi Central constituency, Mrs. Joanna Jan Kujo, on the ticket of the NDC. She won that rerun of the primaries in that constituency some 5 weeks ago. Well, we have a letter from the Electoral Commission indicating that their attention has been drawn to an order for interlocutory injunction dating the 31st of May 2024 in respect of a suit entitled Judo Frimpong and 4 others versus Joanna Jan Kujo, the NDC and the Electoral Commission. It is ordered that until the final determination of the matter, the affected parties are restrained as follows. The first defendant, that's the respondent for holding herself out as a duly elected NDC parliamentary candidate for the Amenfi Central constituency. So essentially what's happened now is that the Electoral Commission has declared that Joanna Jan Kujo, the elected parliamentary candidate on the ticket of the NDC, based on this petition and this interlocutory injunction that is currently running in court, she cannot hold herself out as the parliamentary candidate for the NDC in the Amenfi Central constituency. What this effectively means is that if this matter is not resolved, the NDC may not have a candidate there, and this incumbent MP on the ticket of the NDC is also going as an independent candidate against the NPP candidate there as well. So it's a very interesting development we are seeing right now in that Amenfi Central constituency. And according to the Electoral Commission statement, if you go on our Facebook page right now, you will see a copy of it. The said order has neither been stayed nor vacated. Hence, the Commission is bound by same in this regard the right to inform that's Joanna Jan Kujo that she has been disqualified from standing as a candidate for election to Parliament in this Amenfi Central constituency. That is a letter signed by Samuel Tete, Deputy Chair of Operations for the Electoral Commission with respect to this Memphis Central constituency. Very interesting development we're seeing right now. So the latest coming through right now from the Electoral Commission is that they, based on the interlocutory injunction dated 31st of May, have taken a decision to bar Joanna Jankujo, the NDC parliamentary candidate elect as of 5 weeks ago for the Memphis Central constituency, from holding herself as a parliamentary candidate. And if now we're faced with a situation where the NDC also have to deal with Peter Yao Kwachiaka, who fell out with the party after the primaries and has decided to go as an independent candidate, and he's one of 4 MPs that Harun Idrisu wants his seat to be declared vacant. And Mustafa Gbande is the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC. Is going to be joining us in a bit to have a conversation on this matter. This is the latest development coming through with respect to the Memphis Central constituency. And if you look at the electoral history as we have it in the Memphis Central constituency, this incumbent MP Peter Yao Kwachiaka has a very interesting history with the Memphis Central constituency. He ran as an independent candidate in the year 2008 elections, polled over 7,700 votes. In 2016, he contested on ticket of the NDC and won for the first time. 2020, he retained that seat with 26,100 of the votes, representing 52.91%. In fact, he's contested as an MPP candidate in the 2004 elections as well. So Peter Yao Kwachiaka, you would safely describe him as a political prostitute, as you want to call it, and having contested as an independent candidate, an NPP candidate, and now he won that constituency on the ticket of the NDC twice, retained that seat in 2020, and he's going again as an independent candidate in the 2024 elections because of some issues he had with the party after the primary. So that's what's happening in the Memphis Central constituency right now, and it's one that we're keeping an eye on quite closely. We'll be getting some reactions as well from the party as we go on. But stay with us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Away from that, an Accra High Court earlier today granted leading member of the pressure group Democracy Hub, Oliver Bakavomawo, a 20,000 cedi bail with 2 sureties. Oliver Vomawo was granted the bail today after being denied 3 times, twice by the Accra Circuit Court and once by the High Court. My colleague Lord Rosari was there, but let's stay a bit further on this matter. Thankfully, we have a leading member of the legal team of the Democracy Hub protesters who were arrested, Prince Ganakos, private legal practitioner. Counsel, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Hot Edition.
Good evening, and good evening to your listeners as well.
Now, there are some who have contested that Oliver indeed should have been granted bail way longer before today, but in all the 3 instances, the judges who sat on this case were well convinced in their minds that he cannot be granted bail, eventually denied him bail in all the 3 circumstances. Why is that really a questionable position to take in the face of the law?
So I have to pick my words very carefully here. So let me explain what the law is to you, and your listeners, and then your listeners can come to their own conclusion. Okay, because this is a case that is still in progress. So there is a limit to how much I can criticize the judge's decision. All right. So the law is that when you are arrested, you are presumed to be innocent until proven guilty. The presumption is that you are just as innocent as the next person on the street who has not been accused of anything. So taking that argument to its logical conclusion is that if it doesn't make sense for an innocent person on the street to be arrested and put in cells for no reason, then the person who has been accused of something, if we are presuming that they are innocent until proven guilty, then it also doesn't make sense for them to go behind bars. So if you look at the case of Martin Kwebu, you look at Section 96 of Act 30, it tells you clearly that everybody is entitled to bail, and that the primary consideration for the court to determine when coming to the decision as to whether to grant somebody bail or not is whether the person will show up to court for the trial. So if the court is satisfied by any arguments made by the prosecution or any argument that are before the court, that this person is not going to appear. They will disappear, they won't show up for trial. Then the court can exercise its discretion to deny the person bail. But unless such an argument is before the judge, if such an argument is not before the judge, then the judge has to grant bail. It's an inherent right. And this is what Martin Kpebu fought for. So we start from that position that from the get-go, Oliver was entitled to bail. Now, when we went to court to make the initial argument for bail, it was granted, it was denied out of hand in a decision that has been widely panned by legal practitioners all across Accra. It's not necessary for me, all across the country, it's not necessary for me to rehash those arguments. When we went and made the repeat application for bail, the judge said that because Oliver we made the argument that Oliver was accused of treason, and he shows up in court even when the Attorney General's office doesn't show up in court. If treason, for which the punishment is death, this person has showed up in court consistently for 2 years, then it is not a misdemeanor, and the person is not going to show up in court. And remember I said that the primary consideration is whether the person will show up to trial. So evidently, if Oliver is showing up to trial in a trial which can result in his death, he's not afraid he's showing up, then we can believe that this person is going to show up for a misdemeanor trial. But the judge said that there is a provision in Act 30 that says that the judge can exercise his discretion to deny bail if you were already on bail and you commit a further offense. The law doesn't say that if you were on bail and you commit a further offense, the judge should deny the bail. It says that the judge can consider the circumstances and say that, okay, because you have committed a further offense, he can deny you bail. Now, our argument is that this thing that Oliver is being accused of, the constitutionality of the offense itself is in question. Because if you will recall, the injunction that the court granted against the protest being held was granted in respect of holding the protest at Revolution Square. And that was not the place that the protest was held. It was held at 37. So the constitutionality of the offense that he is being accused of itself is in question. This is not a settled offense like do not steal or do not kill. This is not one of those offenses. The thing that he's being accused of itself is a gray area. And if we take the position that if you are put on bail, as long as the police accuse you of something else, then you are to be remanded forever. That position is logically and legally inconsistent with the principles of constitutionalism and protection of human rights that have come to characterize our democracy. You understand? So that was an argument that I have always had a problem with. But luckily for us, on that day, the judge said that he is going to remand Oliver, but if the Attorney General's office does not make sure that the trial starts within 3 days, then the next time we show up before him, he will be minded to grant the bail. Because he said in court that for him, he is minded to grant the bail. So if within 3 days, the trial does not begin for us to know where this thing is going to end, then he will not keep Oliver in cells unnecessarily. So then we went to the circuit court once again. The bail was denied, but once bail is denied, you are entitled to make a repeat application. So we made a repeat application to the general jurisdiction of the High Court Accra. And today, God being so good, it has been granted, and we know that Oliver is going to be reunited with his family very, very soon.
And I do appreciate you for this detail. I thank you so much. Prince Ganako is private legal practitioner, one of the lawyers for this protesters, that's Democracy Hub protesters who were arrested and detained in police and prison custody. A number of them have been granted bail now. Today, Oliver Bakavoma was granted bail to the tune of some 20,000 cedis by the court here in Accra. But let's go back to our earlier story, the breaking news that we brought to you in the Memphis Central constituency. And in fact, this letter dated October 10 by the Electoral Commission effectively disqualifying, in fact, barring the NDC's candidate in the Memphis Central constituency, Joanna Jan Kojo, from holding herself as the parliamentary candidate on the ticket of the NDC in the Memphis Central constituency because of the interlocutory injunction on her. And now the director of legal of the NDC, Godwin Ejitamaklo, is joining us on the telephone. Council, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us here on Hot Edition.
Alfred, good evening and good evening to your online viewers and listeners.
Now, we're just learning this information coming through. In fact, we've been looking at this Amenfi Central constituency quite closely. And now, this news of the decision by the Electoral Commission to disqualify your candidate, Joanna Jan Kujo, in the Amenfi Central constituency from holding herself as a candidate for election to Parliament on December 7th. How's the party taking all of this?
I, first of all, want to use this platform to, as it were, urge the rank and file of our party, particularly in our Amenfi Central constituency, to remain calm whilst the party headquarters take steps to have this matter resolved. Yesterday, the party, in a letter signed by me, we wrote to the Electoral Commission giving some clarification on some of the issues. Unknown to us, the EC had already taken this conclusion. So the letter we have written that was received yesterday by the EC, we await their response. In the meantime, we'll take every step to correct this anomaly.
In correcting the anomaly, exactly what do you mean, or what steps are you going to take?
Nobody discusses his or her strategy openly. But like I pointed out, the party will have a meeting with the Electoral Commission, and we are confident that the EC will consider this so-called or purported disqualification.
I see. But this presents a very slippery position for you as a party in that constituency. The incumbent MP, who is on the ticket of the NDC, Peter Yakwatiaka, has decided to go independent because of some issues that happened during the rerun of the parliamentary primaries some 6 weeks ago. Now you're faced with this one as well.
What did he say about the primary?
He said that, one, to the extent that in the first primaries, even though Joanna Jankujo won, her eligibility was being contested in court because of some alleged forgery. The forgery.
Article 94 of the Constitution itself provides eligibility criteria to become a member of Parliament. Correct?
Correct.
Which one of them is being contested?
He mentioned specifically about the forgery of some details of a document that she provided in the first primaries. And then
you must be in the law school, correct? Article 94 is clear that a person should have been convicted of an offense involving dishonesty to grant the basis of disqualification. Question: has Madame Joanne been convicted for any offense involving dishonesty?
Oh, she hasn't. The case is still running, as far as I know.
Yeah, we are talking about serious matters here.
Mr. Maklo?
I mean, for the Electoral Commission to make the extraordinary, to disqualify a person is a very serious matter. To disqualify a person from contesting an election as a member of party, it's not subject to the whims of somebody. No, it's a very serious matter. In fact, the Supreme Court in the case of Abuna Williams says, look, the disabilities associated with disqualifying a person are very serious. That's also a decision taken lightly. Even the High Court that they claim the purported High Court or that they claim they are relying on, never disqualified the person. And Alfred, let's see how it goes in the coming days.
wait to see how the coming days will play out. But I thank you so much for this initial reaction to this. Appreciate it.
I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity.
That's Godwin Ejitamaklo is the Director of Legal Affairs for the NDC there with this reacting to this latest development in the Memphis Central constituency where the NDC's candidate per the letter from the Electoral Commission has been disqualified from holding herself up as the parliamentary candidate for the NDC in the Memphis Central constituency. The incumbent MP on the ticket of the NDC as well, Peter Yaokwachiaka, has decided to go independent because of some issues he says he has with the party. Now we've just got a notice from the lawyers of Joanna Jan Kujo, who has been written to by the Electoral Commission declaring her as a disqualified candidate. Quote, the lawyers say, and I quote, "We write as lawyers for and on behalf of the NDC and Joanna Jan Kujo, who is the NDC parliamentary candidate for Memphis Central for the 2024 parliamentary elections, on whose instructions we write to you in respect of the above subject. The instruction of our clients is that they have become aware of an alleged petition dated September 13 and a subsequent letter dated September 24 served on the EC, wherein the petitioners claim that there is a purported pending order of interlocutory injunction restraining Joanna Jan Kujo from holding herself out as duly elected NDC parliamentary candidate." Essentially, the lawyers of Joanna Jan Kujo are contesting this decision by the Electoral Commission. That's the latest coming through on this one as well.
Yes, so here on Hot Edition on Shri FM 92.7. Now the opposition National Democratic Congress has called out President Akufo-Addo for questioning former President Mahama's stance on the fight against illegal mining. Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Mustafa Gbande, says the former president has made his stance clear, and that is to promote responsible mining. President Akufo-Addo, on the tour of the Savannah region on Tuesday, criticized the former president for shifting his position on illegal mining. Listen to what he said.
Somebody who wants to be president, he can't change his mouth. One side of his mouth is saying one thing, the other side of his mouth is saying another thing. It is not good for him. In the 2020 elections, after the government had acted on the Galamsey, he went around all the mining districts of Ghana to tell them that when he comes, he's going to give amnesty to anybody who has been attacked on the Galamsey issue by my government. So it's not surprising that MPP lost in all those constituencies. That when he comes, he will now enforce the Galamsey laws. We want the NDC, four-time NDC presidential candidate, to come clean, to tell us where does he stand. This is what I meant when I said that I was prepared to put my presidency on the line. I was prepared to take the political risk in dealing with them Galamsey.
You had that President Akufo-Addo will bring you more of this shortly after business and sport on Campaign Trail.
The most comprehensive election coverage.
Top-notch presenters and well-versed analysts.
Dedicated reporters and correspondents in every nook and cranny across the country.
All the action, every incident reported. All the big stories covered.
All facts cross-checked. Every figure verified.
Every vote monitored and accounted for.
The numbers tallied, analyzed, and interpreted.
We have invested time and energy in order to bring you a comprehensive elections coverage.
The whole world will be watching us on TV, online, and radio.
Election Command Center. Facts, analysis, results.
Imagine a place where voices matter, where every corner, every street, every community is a platform.
A big bus moving through Accra, carrying conversations, questions, and the pulse of the nation. This is not just another show, it's your voice on the move.
Join us as 3FM Sunrise hits the road, turning ordinary streets into platforms for extraordinary dialogue. Speak freely, listen deeply, and help shape the conversation that drives Ghana forward.
Look out for the bus and tune in exclusively on 3FM 92.7, your urban lifestyle radio.
It's a live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, 2 minutes after 6. Welcome to the business news. This evening, the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC, is urging increased fuel station inspections following allegations of controlled dispensers to shortchange consumers. Getting into the details now, and the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC, is urging the National Petroleum Authority and the Ghana Standards Authority to enhance their routine inspections of fuel stations nationwide. The call follows a viral video that alleged a oil station in Atimpoku in the eastern region was dispensing less fuel than what a customer paid for. COPEC, along with the NPA and Ghana Standards Authority officials, visited the site to investigate the claims. Executive Secretary Duncan Amoah commended the Standards Authority for their swift response, but stressed the need for frequent and announced inspections.
Sometimes, if you check these forms, some of them are just old, right? It might not be somebody is tampering with them, but the machine is tired. So if we do frequent inspections, you would realize that probably we need to change the machines. Probably the managers at the station are not working well. Probably people are also tampering with the machines to do whatever. We need to intensify the inspections. For me, if we could do this every week, I'll be happy. The OMCs I have cautioned, and in fact, I will still continue to engage them. Don't put station managers. They only come and sit and probably watch cars and sell. When they come, they should also take, their morning readings, their afternoon or evening readings, to be sure at all material time that their machines are working the way they should. So the OMCs will need to be firm on their employees or workers, so that if there's a misreading, you, the OMC, would even be aware before the consumer comes and gets an issue with whatever you are serving them.
As Duncan Amoah, the Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers there. A former Finance Minister said Tekpe is urging Ghana to return to the international capital market following its external debt restructuring. Engaging the media on the country's development challenges, Tekpe argued that relying solely on domestic revenue is insufficient to fund critical infrastructure projects in the country. He also warned government against increasing taxes, noting the move does not yield the desired results.
We will have to retain the going back to the market. We have to actually go back, not retain, go back to the market. And therefore, favorite example, you are unlikely, Ghana is unlikely, not even mighty United States, which is fixing its infrastructure, to raise revenue to complete a road project, to complete an airport project, a railway project, raise our own revenue, and we have seen the effect of increasing taxes. If we want to all our taxes to cover the building of roads and the rest in a year. In fact, you can see from the number of taxes that have been increased, there is no solution. It rather pushes us to debt because we're not repaying. So I think the challenge ahead is to get to the market as quickly as possible. And that will mean some real tightening. And I know that there's tightening that has been taking place for our own general good. There are countries today which have been we started with the situation we are in now, which for 15, 20 years have been slugging it out to try and get out. We don't want to do that.
Tekpe is former finance minister there. Now, Fitch Ratings has assigned a CCC Plus rating to Ghana's new US dollar bonds issued on 9th October 2024, reflecting its assessment of the country's debt restructuring progress and ongoing liquidity risks. This improvement indicates a reduced risk of default in the local currency, which could restore some investor confidence and outlook of more favorable international financing. My colleague Besma Kewusa has the details in the following news desk report.
Fitch Ratings has assigned a CCC Plus rating to Ghana's newly issued US dollar bonds as part of the country's debt restructuring efforts. The ratings agency has also upgraded Ghana's long-term local currency issuer default rating, IDR, to CCC Plus from CCC, but affirmed the long-term foreign currency IDR at RD, meaning Ghana is still in default on some external debt. This mixed rating shows that while Ghana is making progress in managing its debt, risks remain high. The CCC Plus rating reflects an improvement, indicating that Ghana's chances of defaulting on local debt have lessened. However, the country still faces liquidity challenges and its economic recovery is fragile. Ghana's recent debt exchange involving $13.1 billion in Eurobonds has reduced its foreign debt by around 6% of GDP. Interest payments are also set to decrease over the next few years, offering substantial relief. Despite these positive steps, further restructuring of foreign currency debt is needed, with a resolution expected by early 2025.
As Miss Makosa ending the business news here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale. We're live on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. Up next is the sports news. Ore Kwampo for standing by.
The most comprehensive election coverage.
Top-notch presenters and well-versed analysts.
Dedicated reporters and correspondents in every nook and cranny across the country.
All the action, every incident reported. All the big stories covered.
All facts cross-checked. Every figure verified.
Every vote monitored and accounted for.
The numbers tallied, analyzed, and interpreted.
We have invested time and energy in order to bring you a comprehensive elections coverage.
The whole world will be watching us on TV, online, and radio.
Election Command Center. Facts, analysis, results.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the sports segment here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Ore Kwampofo. We still stay with the Black Stars, whose qualification to the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco still hangs by a very thin thread after a 2-0 defeat to Sudan. Now the defeat means that the Black Stars must win their remaining 2 games against Angola and Niger and hope that Sudan also lose their remaining 2 games. Former head coach of the Black Stars, Charles Akono, believes that one of the issues with the team has to do with the mentality and how players usually want to thrive individually instead of playing as a team.
I think after these first 2 matches, that was impressive. We've always known that the team has not been a situation where they are playing like a team. It's more of individual brilliance. That if a lot of people have shown what they can do, but as a team collectively, we've not been able to see exactly what is expected of them, and it's simply difficult also because the time factor. They come here for a week or whatever, and then they go back. So it's a very difficult situation for any other coach, and so they've not shown the ability to work as a team, and that is what we lack. It's been there, but also we must understand that they are in a period of challenges. They are in the challenging moments for them, and they need to get it quickly, else it will not be too good.
So that was former head coach of the Black Stars, Charles Akono, who did coach the team back in 2019. Let's move overseas, where Thomas Tuchel has been appointed as the new England manager from January 1st, 2025. The 51-year-old German, who has signed an 18-month contract, becomes the third non-British manager of the men's team after Sven Goran Eriksson and then Fabio Capello. Gareth Southgate resigned in July after England's defeat by Spain in the Euro 2024 final. Lee Carsley, who has overseen 4 games so far since being appointed as interim manager in August, will remain in charge for the Nations League matches against Greece and the Republic of Ireland next month.
Hi guys, Thomas here. Nervous, it's my first message. As the English head coach, I'm at Wembley, where else? And there's also a reason to be a bit nervous. I think that's a good thing. I can promise you I'm very excited, I'm very honored, and I will do everything that we have qualify for World Cup first of all, and then we have a successful World Cup and try to get a second star on our shirt. All the best and see you soon in the stadium.
So that was New England boss Thomas Tuchel, who takes charge from 2025 January. My name is Ore Kwampofo, and if you're after some more sports stories, you can follow us on social media at 3SportsGH. That's how we wrap up the sports segment here on Hot Edition. The program continues right after this. So here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Thank you very much, Ore Kwampofo, for bringing us the latest in sports.
Breaking news on 3FM 92.7.
And some breaking news coming through again right here on Hot Edition. We're learning that an Accra High Court has charged Prophet Elisha Salifu Amoako, his wife and another, with 1 count of permitting an unlicensed person to drive. Prophet Amoako and his wife are parents of the 16-year-old responsible for an accident at East Legon, leading to the death of 2 girls. And Lord Edwasari will shortly be bringing us a report as regards these charges that are coming through. But as if you just joined us, the breaking news coming through is that an Accra Circuit Court has charged Prophet Elisha Salifu Amoako, his wife and another, with 1 count of permitting an unlicensed persons to drive. Prophet Amoako and his wife are parents of the 16-year-old responsible for an accident at East Legon, leading to the death of 2 girls. Lord Edwasari has been following the story. He'll be joining us very shortly with details of this breaking news story. But if you recall, yesterday, Prophet Elisha and his wife were arrested. We understood earlier that he was granted bail earlier. And now we are learning that the Accra Circuit Court has charged him and his wife for allowing a minor to drive, leading to that accident that claimed the lives of 2 girls. We understand both of them aged 16. So this is the breaking news coming through here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. This accident happened in East Legon on Sunday, and actually earlier this week, and we'll be bringing you information on that. And it's so here on Hot Edition on True FM 92.7. I was telling you about the breaking news coming through Accra Circuit Court charging Prophet Elisha Salifo Amuakon, his wife, and another with one count of permitting an unlicensed person to drive. Prophet Amuakon and his wife are parents of the 16-year-old responsible for an accident at East Legon leading to the death of two girls. And Lord Edwasare is our court affairs correspondent. He joins us live on the line. Lord, what more can you tell us about this breaking story?
Yeah, so reaching Prophet Salifo Amuakon's wife, finding Moha, and an employee of the elder brother of the minor, were both accosted and charged with one count of permitting an unlicensed person to drive contrary to Regulation 42 of the Road Traffic Regulations. Now, the court said that granted an appeal of 50,000 to security. During the hearing, the victim moved to the court that apparently the vehicle belongs to the mother of the 15-year-old. During the birthday celebrations of the 25-year-old elder brother, the key was handed over allegedly to him by this employee, despite knowing that the minor did not possess a license. They gave us a vivid description of how the accident unfolded. Now, after all of this, the last turnout by some members of Prophet Salifo Amuakon's congregation who turned up at the court. And there's a bit of a melee because we tried to prevent reporters who were on the ground from taking video. Some went as far as getting into a scuffle with the police personnel and even assaulting some of the journalists who were present at the court premises basis.
Let me get clarity. Who assaulted the journalists who were reporting from court?
Members of the congregation of Prophet Salifo Amuakon. They were very upset about the entire situation, and in their bid to try to prevent the journalists from taking videos, but into a scuffle with the security or the police persons who were on the ground and tried to seize some of the phones of the journalists present and assaulted some of them as well.
Again, your line wasn't so clear earlier. You were talking about the other person who's been charged in addition to the wife and the prophet himself. Who is this person, you said?
I'm sorry, can you come again?
I was asking the third person who's been charged along with Prophet Elisha Amuakon and the wife. Who is he?
Indeed. She is Linda Bonsu Bempa. She's an employee of the elder brother of the minor, and she was present at that party. According to the prosecution, she gave the car keys of the SUV to the minor, despite knowing that he did not possess any license.
And you said that the SUV belongs to the wife of Prophet Amuakon, as in the mother of the boy?
Indeed, indeed.
Lord, I'm just wondering whether you've had any immediate remarks from lawyers on what this charge actually means for these individuals.
Not immediately. They're not readily available to make any comments because of how tense the whole atmosphere was. And this was a situation where the church members did not want anything coming out. So there's a bit of a scuffle and melee happening, and so nothing much could be. No commentary or interviews could be granted at that point.
And are you able to tell us the demeanor of Prophet Elisha Amuakon if he was in court, and indeed the other people who were charged, aside from the reaction from the church members that you've just given us?
Prophet Amuakon was relatively calm. He just kept reassuring the members. And when he came, he was waving his members. Part of being escorted into the courtroom. He was relatively relaxed together with his wife and then the third accused person in the case.
And again, this is coming just hours after we had the information that he had been granted, is he a 50,000 Ghana cedi bail?
Indeed. He's on a 50,000 cedi bail with two sureties together with his wife and then Ms. Bempa, the third accused person.
So what this means is that he's been granted bail, he's been charged, but he will not be behind bars tonight because he was granted bail earlier. Is that what it is?
able to fulfill or meet the requirements here. Behind himself.
Thank you very much, Lord Edwasari, bringing us that comprehensive detail of the latest development on the story. And we just brought it to you as breaking news. The Accra Circuit Court charging Prophet Elisha Salif Wamwako, his wife, and another with one count of permitting an unlicensed person to drive. And per the explanation we just gave you, that third person who's been charged is the individual who gave that SUV to the minor to drive, leading to that accident that led to the death of two girls in East Legon. And we'll bring you more as and when we have it. And before we go, the vice presidential candidate of the opposition National Democratic Congress, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, is wrapping up her Bono regional campaign tour today. Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman has been canvassing for votes in the region, and this is what she said earlier when she addressed professional groups and students in Sunyani.
You invest in hospitals, and somebody tell you it's not a social intervention. I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. Because when they are sick, they also go there, or they don't. The UDMC, is it just for NDC people? Why not? Has anybody said because you didn't vote for me, your child cannot go to this school? Have we heard that before? So why do we hear about you didn't vote for me, so I've taken my eyes off you? Is that governance? No. Let us all advise ourselves, especially the young people. Governance that doesn't reach everybody. Governance that doesn't target the poor. Government that doesn't build from the bottom up. We must look again. And I think we've seen enough for us to make our minds. Why are we so broke? What happened? Sometimes I wonder if some of us are really, really conscious of the real financial state of this country. Why are all our water bodies polluted? Why is some of portions of our land getting poisoned? What does it mean for our future? And if the rumors are true, this government is coming for A, the other is coming for B because we own them. What progress have we made as a people? What do we tell our children? So my friends, we have the option. We have the option to reset this country. It's not going to be a joke. It's not going to be a child's game. Or we either reset or we sink further. The choice is ours.
And you heard the vice presidential candidate of the opposition NDC, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. And that's it for Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu. Thank you very much for joining us today. I did this with Alfred Ocansey. Log on to StreetNews.com for more news. Have a good evening and do enjoy the rest of our programs.